Mr. President.
The senator from Montana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you should hear the folks back in Montana and across this country as they watch the news and read the papers, shaking their heads. I don't blame them, shaking my head too, because we just wasted 2 precious days debating a plan that wipes out Medicare and Social Security, a plan that guts veteran benefits. Yes, that's exactly what the plan just did. It's exactly why I opposed it. It's incredible to me that some folks have no problem turning their back on America's seniors and America's veterans, while at the same time preserving tax loopholes that benefit millionaires and big oil and Wall Street and corporations that ship our jobs overseas. That, Mr. President, is why Montana and folks across this country shaking their heads. They don't think much of what's going on in Washington, D.C. these days. My friends in the House know full well that this bill is no friend of the seniors and it's no friend of the veterans. They knew full well that it would force deep cuts on Medicare and Social Security. They know this all so very well. So you know what they did? What do career politicians do when they want people to believe that their plan to cut Medicare somehow exempts Medicare? They had language saying exempt Medicare. That's what they did. Montanans deserve better, and Americans deserve better. So let's look at the whole truth. Let's first talk about the cuts that are in the cut, cap, and balance plan. This plan locks in cuts proposed by the controversial House budget plan, otherwise known as the Ryan plan in the House. And it locks them in for a full decade. That means you're going to see more than $111 billion in cuts this year alone. That's 10%. Will it be a 10% cut to veterans' health care or highway or water infrastructure or to education? They won't tell us how they plan to make those cuts. Maybe they'll take a little less out of our veterans, but at the expense of cops and firefighters. Maybe they'll take a few less dollars out of ag research, but then kick a few more kids out of Head Start. Now let's talk about the cap. The plan caps federal spending at 18% of gross domestic product, requiring even further spending cuts. 18% brings us to a level that this country hasn't seen since 1966, about the same time that Medicare was created. Even Ronald Reagan advocated for a higher rate than 18%. Here's the kicker. The small print you won't hear from the people who already voted for this bill is that the annual interest on our debt and the very things that this bill claims to exempt, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, veterans benefits, will cost more than what is allowed under the cap. That means there would be nothing left to spend on any other program. Nothing. That includes the military, our infrastructure, Homeland Security, and just about everything else. So how's that going to work so that this bill protects Social Security and Medicare? It won't, unless you invent your own math. What are the lawmakers going to do? Do they really intend to close down the Pentagon? I doubt it. But that means they're going to have to go back and cut Medicare and Social Security. Under this bill, it's their only choice. The numbers simply don't add up. The fact is that we're wasting time even giving daylight in the Senate. And it's exactly why the folks back home are shaking their heads. They expect us to get a job done responsibly, using common sense, in a way that doesn't dismantle Medicare, Social Security, or hurt our veterans. I look forward to debating a bipartisan plan to responsibly cut the debt and cut spending, and there's one being worked on right now. But the Senate just voted on this was not responsible. The Senate rejected it, and rightfully so. Now we need to move to a bipartisan plan that comes out of the middle, not from the partisan extremes. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of